Good evening, everyone. Welcome to your Monday Night Live. We are just a few days away from the semifinal against Ohio State University. We played them a couple times. We've got a 2-1 record around them, which is great. I mean, it basically just means we're probably going to win again. But Drew, this is one thing that I looked at this morning, and I did some very loose internet research. The last time Texas was an underdog was 2023 in Alabama, and that was in Tuscaloosa. So this is the first time they're really kind of coming into, certainly this season, as the team that's obviously unexpected to win. And I'm just curious, when you're in that situation, does that free things up, or does that create a little bit more tightness? Or does it even affect the players at all?
It doesn't really affect the players from tightness or anything else. I think what it does is it humbles the players. I mean, not that last game left anything to be proud of, and so there's always something to coach on. But I do think when the conversation is going to this extreme, where Texas will get blown out if they don't do X, Y, and Z, or Texas is not good, or Texas will get blown out, those conversations are the ones that it won't say it's not even that it's a chip on your shoulder. You're just anxious to get out and show what it looks like when people make comments like that. So
sure. Well, and this is one of the things that was written about today. Well, we've been talking about it is, and I'll throw this to you, Eric, because you had a good article about this earlier today, or maybe it was yesterday. But they are justifiably the underdog here.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are claiming that that's based on recency bias of Ohio State's last two games. But I think I base that based on how Texas has played pretty much all season. There's a lot of potential fatal flaws going into this game. Too many penalties, way too many turnovers. Special teams is a train wreck, kicking a game. They've given up too many fake extra downs on fake punts. And then they played too many disjointed halves. You have a really good first half and a bad second half. And so Ohio State just plays cleaner football. I do predictions every week. I base it on the matchups, try to keep the emotion out of it. And right now the matchups point in Ohio State's favor. I also picked Ohio State to win the national championship at the beginning of the season.
That's fair. You did do that. I'll give you credit for that.
I think Ian did as well. And so this kind of rounds into my biases coming into the season. Like, there are times this year where I'm like, wow, I thought they were going to be better than this. Well, right now they're looking about how I expected them to look. So Texas is going to have to play well, very well, play their best game of the year. But you should have to play the best game of the year against the best team in this setting. So I do think they're going to play a cleaner game. I do think that being in a dogfight for 4 quarters is probably going to keep them focused, probably keep them from committing as many turnovers and penalties. At least that's the hope. Let's see it. Let's get it to a close game in the fourth quarter and see who wants it more.
Ian, Paul had a good point this morning when he was actually talking about his just the betting lines and everything that goes into this. And one of the points he made is Ohio State just actually now executing at whatever their potential was, and almost like the coaches are getting out of the way? Or do you feel like they've really changed their scheme up in these last few weeks? Because certainly, if we want to talk about the run game, they're running way more counter now than they were certainly during the season.
Maybe on the counter. There was I want to say 2 years ago, C.J. Stroud's final year at Ohio State. They lost to Michigan again. That was only the second time. And you could just see all the holes in their team. But then, like in the very last moments, like in the very last days before the Georgia matchup, I was looking at it, and I was like, well, you know what, though? This game's going to be played in a dome, and they always have NFL receivers and NFL corners, and Georgia is not going to benefit from cold weather or rivalry focus or whatever. And I actually picked Ohio State to win that game. They came up a little short. They probably would have won if Marvin Harrison Jr. hadn't been concussed. All that to say, Ohio State is built for the college football playoffs every year. And nobody that has played them thus far in the playoffs has been able to match the style and the energy that Michigan brought to that game. I don't know how many teams even can. I think maybe Texas could in some regards. I think Notre Dame could maybe do it. But Notre Dame's going to have to play them in like where, like Miami or something, right? They don't get to play them outdoors in Ann Arbor or Columbus. So I think a lot of this is just Ohio State is motivated. It's all coming together, and their style is better suited to the playoffs than it is to December Big Ten games against rivals.
When you say that, what I'm curious about is what, in your mind, what constitutes the best makeup for a college football playoff team? Is it depth? Is it just, talent everywhere? How simple does it need to be, or is it complex?
NFL wide receivers.
Right.
And they've been working with the quarterback all year. And so there's not diminishing returns on the passing game. It just gets better and better all year. You get more and more used to what coverages teams throw at you. You get better and better communicating the blitzes, hitting the hot routes. All the time, it gets better and better. Like this is really the style you want in a playoff. You already did, but especially now that it's 12 teams, you want NFL receivers and you want the savvy veteran quarterback.
That's it.
They have a lot of other. Depth is good. They have that. Great NFL cornerbacks are really helpful. They have that. Really good safeties are nice. Enormous defensive linemen.
What are and John A is coming in here. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, Eric. What do you think the odds are Sark has talked to Saban for advice on third quarter ineffectiveness?
I knew you were going to give me that. I doubt it. Hey, what's he calling with the boss? What would you do? I think. That's almost admitting defeat. Sometimes I have to call Ian when I get stuck on an article and I have to admit defeat. Ian, what am I missing here? That you don't want to do that. I think Sark probably has a pretty decent handle on it. I think the leads that they often have going into the second half are not good. Texas has not played well with a lead in a decade, it seems.
Yeah.
It's Tom Herman. He cannot handle success to save his life. And this team does a lot better at handling success, but they've played in way too many close games, even during Sark's entire tenure. I think, part of that Sark style, he likes to get a lead and then assert dominance and choke teams out. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It worked very well against Michigan. Nobody left that game upset that they didn't win by, more points, even though it was there for them. And sometimes it doesn't. They couldn't run the ball against Arizona State. And I think they're just way too more mistake prone. They seem to lose focus. That's when you see more penalties and you see more turnovers. What have they had? 24 turnovers this season, 13 fumbles, 11 fumbles, 13 interceptions, 13 and 11. It's just terrible.
Right.
I think it's lack of focus in the second half. That's what I'm hoping, that a dogfight will keep the team focused for 4 quarters. That's the hope. We'll see if it manifests. But hey, there's a lot of people in here calling Ian Eeyore, and that should terrify them, because outside of myself, and Drew's been pretty optimistic about Sark too, but I don't think there's been anybody more optimistic about the Sark tenure than Ian. And so when he got pessimistic, that should have rang alarm bells a little bit more. And I'm feeling a little bit less optimistic than certainly I was in September or after the OU game.
Didn't we? But we both picked Texas to lose this matchup, right? But we both said the final.
Yeah, in the Natty, we both picked Texas to fall to Ohio State in the final.
This is all right. So here's a question. We'll throw this one to you, Drew. So disregard the roster. Let's say the roster is of equal caliber. It's almost a wash anyway. Which coaching staff would you all rather have in this game? Man, I love these. These are just stir. The shit's not going to stir itself.
Sark. I'll take Sark all day. I like the way Sark has built this team inside and out. That's an easy decision for me. But one thing that's not easy is just to disregard their roster.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, that's one thing that's impossible to do. And I'm not sure it will matter from the coaching headsets. I mentioned earlier in a comment on the board that it's not so much about the scheme. Absolutely. The scheme has to come and has to be buttoned up, and Sark has to know what we want to do offensively. Our defense has to know how we want to execute, how we want to attack them, how we want to slow them down, what we're going to prioritize. That has to be buttoned up through and through. But I do think from an offensive standpoint, scheme won't be as important as maybe the play calling, because Ohio State's just not one of these teams, especially with the deficiencies that we've shown so far this season, whether it be penalties or just execution. Ohio State's not one of these teams you're just going to be able to lean on a particular thing for the for 4 quarters. So Sark is going to have to be the play caller come this Friday. Regardless of the scheme, we know we have a deep bag of plays, different ways we can run the ball, different ways to get our playmakers the ball. Ohio State still has to prepare for that. And they don't know what we're going to lean on. So I do think Sark, the play caller, is going to have to be dialed in regardless of how we choose to execute or how we choose to attack. The play calling is going to be the most key part from start to finish for Sark and that team.
Where do you land on that, Ian?
Give me Sark over third base day for sure.
Okay. And this is it's unfair, Eric, but I'm going to do this anyway. I'm not going to ask you which defensive coordinator you would rather have. That's not the question. The question I'm going to ask you here is, why do people keep asking these questions? We have the staff that we have. We have the quarterback that we have. We have the roster that we have. But I feel like every time we go into a game where we might be an underdog, we start trying to switch the entire program around. And you've been in this game long enough. Why do people do this?
Man, they just want to talk about the game and every aspect of it. You know, it's I think they want to feel better about their team, or some people want to feel worse about their team. You know, we're all wired a little bit differently. But I don't have a problem answering that. I would take PK. Man, PK's been doing this thing for a very long time, and Knowles does have a nice track record. But PK at Boise State, at Washington, and it's a lot more than just scheming. I mean, his PK's proven record of developing his position group is extremely good, and it's only going to get better as he keeps stacking up the players like he has. Colin Simmons, Barron Sorrell is going to get drafted. Lance Jackson's coming in. I mean, the list is going to go on and on for a very long time. So give me PK. But yeah, I think definitely what people want. It's the internet. And people want to have polarizing takes and stuff like that. We just want to talk ball about the actual matchups that matter.
I do want to. What was that? Go ahead, Drew.
I just there's one thought I just have regarding this. You got to go with PK, and not just because it's PK and the way he's developed this roster, but I just saw Georgia lose a playoff game that they had a bye week for because our defense broke them in half. They didn't make it with time off to this next game. I'll take our guys against Ohio State, PK against Ohio State, against anyone in 4 quarters because of the way we play the game. And that's something that stands out to me more than anything else. We're singularly responsible for why Georgia just didn't have anything left.
PK also had to rebuild the whole defense when Ohio State has not lacked. Ohio State has not lacked for defensive personnel since any of us have been alive, it seems like. And when PK got to Texas, it was barren across the board. And not Jahdae Barron. I mean, the other type of Barron. And so, he gets credit for that. I mean, PK would be overqualified as a head coaching candidate. He just has no interest in it. So, I mean, he's a hell of a coach. Always has been.
I want to get into some of these matchups here, but before we do, I want to hear from one of our sponsors. I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor, and I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach, and he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below. So, Ian, one of the things, let's just talk matchups for a second, because this is actually look, let's say if we could hypothetically extract ourselves from our emotional attachment to the University of Texas, you've got you've got NFL matchups all over this thing. Probably 2 NFL players on the Ohio State defensive line, certainly 2 NFL players on the Texas offensive line. I mean, it's across the board going to be a a talent-based matchup. And I'm just curious if there's one in particular you're really looking at, or is it just everywhere?
Texas's outside receivers need to beat the Ohio State quarterbacks on a couple big plays to win this game. I think that's possible. Oregon did it with Evan Stewart cooked him in game 1. And then he didn't even play in game 2, right? He had like some back injury at the end of the Big Ten championship or something. But then Trayshawn Holden still went for over 100 on him. And the Ohio State puts a lot on their corners. And, I mean, Texas could win this game on that matchup. If anybody's looking for some hopium. And especially if Isaiah Bond plays, they could absolutely win the game by just hitting a couple bombs outside. And either that being the difference in a close defensive game or that just kind of breaking down the Ohio State defense and discombobulating them or whatever. That's for Texas winning. That's the big one.
This is one of the things that you wrote about this week, and I'm going to go to Victor's question here. He says, Ian, Ohio State likes to play their safeties close to the box to help against the run. And one of the things that people are immediately prior to the snap, you're seeing something that looks akin to cover 3, and then they immediately move out of that. I'm just curious, Ian, like what is the thing that you noted Michigan did really well that no one else has been able to do?
Well, on offense, they just hammered them in the trenches for 3 yards a pop and got like just enough magic out of their passing game on third downs for that to work. So they're methodical. Ohio State does have this one linebacker, Sonny Styles, who was a safety last year. You could just see like he's like 6'4", 230. And so last year they're like, we're going to stop the big bad Michigan run game by putting this enormous freak at safety. And that'll deal with it. And then he had no idea how to close space and fit the right gap. And Michigan burned him like one of the biggest runs of the day that broke the game open was Styles just getting lost in the sauce on a breakaway Blake Corum run. And then this year they moved him to linebacker, and he's got a little bit of the Harold Perkins type deal where he's a really good athlete that doesn't necessarily know the intricacies of linebacker yet, or like freshman Anthony Hill, sometimes sophomore Anthony Hill. Texas could maybe try to hammer them in the run game, but that's probably not their best bet. And their favorite outside zone plays would probably get squashed because Ohio State's very good at defending those. So they need to mix it up. I mean, Michigan's a big power run game. That's all they do is power.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard to mimic that part.
So here, Drew, I mean, what do you do? I mean, how do we win this game?
Offensively, I think we have to throw the ball. Let's just call it what it is. But we also have to be patient on how we do it. Everything, as much as I love the deep shots, if they're playing man, we're going to have to be smart about how we do that. But our receivers are going to have to step up. Similar to what Ian just said, is our receivers are going to have to play like future NFLers. Wingo, you're not ready today, but we need you to step up. I want Silas Bolden to get more time just because I trust his hands and his ability to make tough catches when they throw him the ball. I can't necessarily say that about DeAndre Moore or even Isaiah Bond in certain situations. So it's like, who can we trust to make the tough catches when they're needed, when someone's covered, when someone's right on them, and just be patient with moving the chains. I think defensively, I saw these last 2 games kind of rubbed me the wrong way because it's just different when you're coming off of a loss and you're playing against Tennessee at home. And Tennessee was overwhelmed for one. And then I'm watching Ohio State just come out with a great script. Receivers, everything was dialed up, wide open. You have cornerbacks losing leverage. They have bracket coverage on a receiver, and you just let them get outside leverage when you can't even play them to your bracket. There's so many different things I saw Oregon do that just didn't work. So I don't feel we match up, or we'll just have that same. What we saw from Ohio State won't be the same with us. But what I do hope we get to see, or hope we can force them into doing, is what I saw Michigan do, is they got to third down. And on third down, what does Will Howard he throws to the sticks. If it's 3rd and 6, he's throwing it to the receiver at 7 yards. If it's 3rd and 9, he's throwing it to the receiver at 11 yards. Michigan was just sitting on everything. So I think really we got to force the game into Will Howard's hand. I don't want those backs to get loose. Yes, I know they have great receivers, but I think tighter coverage with Will Howard and trusting him to beat us, I'd rather see that happen than just us assume we can just – yeah. And I really think that's where we got to put the hands into, Will Howard. Because if you ask me who's the player that's the weak link, it's him.
Okay. I'll throw this question to you, Eric. Not this question from Charlie Williams. I just wanted the people to see that Charlie is thinking about this stuff. So,
and Charlie got a mention in of him, as we knew he would.
Yes, he did. So here's the question. Is Will Howard an NFL quarterback?
Wow, who's this Andrew Kelson fellow that asked it? There's a lot of guys that are NFL quarterbacks that are on a team or they're backups, but they get lucky that they don't get tested much and they're just kind of there standing around. I think he could be that guy. I don't think he's an NFL starter by any stretch. No, I don't. I've never seen him. Something that makes him dangerous is when they run him. And you haven't seen that much this season. So, and obviously you wouldn't see that in the NFL. But you can be an effective college quarterback and not have great pro prospects. I've never seen him really read defense as well. I haven't seen him really consistent down the field outside of play action shots that he got at K-State. Sometimes he nailed some of those for sure. He had a pretty good receiving core that first year that he played a lot. But no, I don't think he's an NFL starter by any stretch. Maybe he hangs around the league for a couple of years.
Staying with you here, Eric. This is more of a roster question, but it leads into a bigger discussion, and that is there another kicker that may kick field goals instead of Burt?
Well, yeah, Will Stone's gotten some looks in practice the last couple of days, and we'll see if they roll with him. It's going to depend on how they go with practice. But I think, go read that free article that Paul wrote. It's on InsideTexas.com about how, issues with field goal kicking should inform Sark's decision-making once he gets on the other side of the 50 to be more aggressive and try to convert first downs. As Paul mentioned that this week, Texas is Arizona State. I fully agree. You can't take anything for granted. Any points cannot be taken for granted with the way Burt's kicking. But hopefully Ohio State's kicker replicates his effort against Michigan, where he missed 2 from inside 40 yards. So special teams could be a factor for both teams, or a wild ride for both teams.
One of the things that Paul mentioned there, Ian, is is exactly what Eric talked about, our lack of special teams acumen. Honestly, like we've got we tend to punt it into the end zone every time we kick it. And I'm just curious, one of the things that Paul mentioned is the idea that maybe just Sark goes for it on 4th. Once we get past the 40, we just go for it. And I know that you and Paul love to agree with each other. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Sark did that against Alabama and Tuscaloosa. He went for it on 4th down a bunch of times right from the get-go. And I think a lot of them actually didn't even – he had a couple that set them up on the goal line and they came up empty early in that game. And then eventually it broke open. Obviously, that's the right way to play. That's how Marcus Freeman played against Georgia. They call it playing the percentages for a reason. The expected value when you go for it in a lot of situations once you get past the 50 is better than a 50-50 shot at field goal. And if your kicker is worse than that, it just changes the math very quickly. So I don't know if it's that we've already seen Sark adapt that mindset before in a big game, so I don't think there's going to be much hesitation from him. Once they cross the 50, they're going to be aggressive. They're going to be trying to win the game.
I mean, nobody knows more than Sark that he's got issues with the kicking game. So I'm not really. He's shown himself to be quite pragmatic in his time at Texas. He's not beholden to whatever the binder says. I think he knows that he's going to have to be aggressive to win this game. I'm not really worried about that. Actually, I am worried about field goal kicking. I'm not worried about Sark's response to the problem.
Just going into a little bit of scouting here, how good is Ohio State's offensive line in comparison to our defense? How do they match up, Ian?
They've sneaky good.
What makes them sneaky good?
They've been working in some younger guys because they had all these injuries. And it turns out maybe the younger guys can play. So they have a DFW product, Donovan Jackson. I'm sure Eric remembers that recruitment.
Absolutely. He was going to go to Texas until he sat in the Cotton Bowl, the real Cotton Bowl, and saw Herb Hand's unit get wrecked to the tune of 8 sacks. So that's add another one that Ohio State was gifted because of Texas ineptitude. That one stung in real time. That was a Texas lock. He was getting ready to commit early in the spring, and it was over after that outing.
So he's been their left guard for a while, and then they had a bunch of injuries at tackle, and so they just were like, okay, Donovan Jackson plays left tackle now. And it seems like they might have actually upgraded a little bit in the exchange. He's presumably not as good in pass pro as some of their tackles, but he is a very good athlete, which is why he was a 5-star. And then the guys that they put in at guard are like pretty big and strong, and they're getting some real movement. So if you watch them over the course of the year, their offensive line doesn't seem that great. And for a lot of the year, they've been kind of shuffling and trying to figure some stuff out. And now when you watch them, I mean, they mauled Tennessee. And Tennessee was supposed to have one of the best D-lines in the country. They mauled Oregon. Oregon was certainly not a bunch of chumps. So this is one of those things that this is maybe one of the big things that no one's talking about. That's why Ohio State is kind of starting to look like just a buzzsaw right now.
And this is again a little bit of a personnel question here, Eric, but I understand that you're going to get a lot more information as the week goes on, and that big info dump is later in the week at Inside the Program. But I'm just curious, have you heard anything in terms of practices or what's going on inside the building about making any kind of personnel changes? I mean, obviously, Wisner's the one we're going to run with here, but do we think maybe Baby Rhino gets some more carries?
I don't. It's funny. I had a dream last night that they were in that, not that wishbone look, but that 3-back set where he was getting fullback dives. And it's so weird. Somebody mentioned him earlier today. I was like, why am I dreaming about this dude?
Yeah.
It's just the magnitude of the game. So maybe it actually happened, and I just had a vision of it. Now, I haven't heard that yet. Today was their first real practice getting ready for this game. Sark gave them some time off, and it was more walkthrough stuff and brain work and body work. So I haven't heard anything from practice today. I mean, you would like for him to be ready this game. And certainly when you saw him play earlier in the season, you would have thought that he would have had more of a build up to more carries, which we haven't seen. I think some of that is ball security issues. He came in that one game getting ready to get some carries and fumbled on the first one, didn't see him again. I'm not sure that Sark really trusts anybody in a touchy situation outside of Trey Wisner to protect the ball. But no, I haven't heard anything on that. We mentioned Will Stone has gotten some looks, but I don't, this isn't really the time to experiment. I don't think so. The one thing I would experiment is the one thing I would tell him to do is make a concerted effort to get the damn ball to Ryan Wingo. That guy, I don't want to hear about timing. Just tell him you're going to throw him a slant, get his body inside, make the catch, and try to break a tackle. Just throw him the damn ball. I don't want to hear about all these timing routes. Don't throw him timing routes. Don't throw him routes where he has to read the defense. Okay, make it simple for him. Get him the damn ball. Hit him on reverses, screens. I don't care. There's ways to just target the wide receiver. All right. I saw you throw 20 times to Xavier Worthy in the wind when he was caught like 4 of them. All right. Throw the Ryan Wingo the ball, please.
I'm going to throw this one to you, Drew, and obviously I want to hear your thoughts as well, Ian. But Jacob is asking, or basically stating, like Texas should blitz a little more in the game. And really, the way I'd like to frame this is, as you mentioned, if Will Howard is the weak link, how do we get to Will Howard? How do we get in his head? How do we mess up his game?
It really comes down to how we're disguising things, taking away his first look, confusing him. I mean, everybody's seen Will Howard ball these last 2 weeks, but when you're watching the film, you're like, wow, Oregon, you didn't make it hard for him. Tennessee, you didn't make it hard for him. I do think whether it's blitzing or not, it really comes down to the looks. Ohio State's offensive line has kind of gotten to that point where you might be cashing the wrong check if you think you can get home with blitzing often. I think the formula that has worked for us is the one that I'm hoping we put ourselves in position to lean on, and that's get to third down. Stop the run, get to third down, give us a chance to make a play, give us a chance to make a play on their side of the field, give us a chance to get a turnover, give us a chance to give a look that Will Howard's not prepared for. We're either going to have to rely on him. They're either going to have to rely on him to make the right reads or just throw accurate passes to their talented receivers in man, or in situations where it's not even the right decision. It's to the right player. So we just got to get the third down and let our defense keep cooking. I think that's the main thing. If we're struggling early, it's going to be a long day.
Ian, anything to add to that?
I don't want to bring more than 4 very often.
Yeah.
I can bring some blitzes where they bring 4 and drop somebody back out underneath. But I want to be able to match the Michigan defensive strategy and have a safety on a Igbuka and a safety on Jeremiah Smith more often than not. I don't know if they're going to do that, but I want them to. I want them to have the option to do that. But PK, even if PK doesn't do that, PK is not about taking a lot of chances between the 20s anyway.
No.
He loves their third down package that Drew's talking about is awesome. They don't want to.
This is perfect bend but don't break. And, put Malik Muhammad in man over there, and that way he can't blame anybody else.
From the Patriots State, Brett Nelson, what tendencies, thank you for the super chat, Brett, what tendencies do you see Sark breaking? And this is something that comes up quite a bit, especially when teams are considered underdogs. Do they have a secret playbook that no one has seen? And what Brett is asking is, how do you see Coach K attacking their offense? Horns by 350.
That's 350.
Thank you so much.
Great episode.
So, I mean, do you see this is in akin to what you were just talking about, in line with that? Do you see PK changing much here in this, or and also on Sark's side?
I mean, the right answer, I think, is to do almost exactly what Michigan did to the best of your ability, coverage-wise. I could see PK just playing like, hey, we're going to do our normal match 3 coverage. Cornerbacks don't get beat deep. No excuses. Barron, you got Smith, don't get beat deep. If they throw a dozen hitch routes on the day underneath and they catch them all, we'll live to fight for the red zone, but don't let them over the top. So, I mean, they might just do that. That might work. I mean, I think, Drew, I heard you saying – Drew doesn't know. I heard you saying earlier, Drew, like, hey, it's not like Oregon and Tennessee were playing that good in the secondary against Ohio State. So maybe you don't have to fill out to stop the pass if you're actually, competent in your technique. Sark-wise, I mean, Sark always has stuff. One of the – I think it's possible Ohio State could shut down Texas's offense and just blow us out. But I would put that a little lower on my list of concerns. I can't think of a big game where Sark and Quinn didn't go in ready to at least take it to the fourth quarter.
And this defense has weathered that storm all year. They're just built for allowing the offense to figure out when they're going to get it together, when they're going to put up points. They're not psychologically by, when it's sudden change and there's a turnover, they go out. If it's 3rd and long and it gets converted, they come right back out like it's nothing. They just don't fold. So that's the most consistent part of this team that I've seen. The most consistent element is just that our defense plays for 4 quarters, whether we're turning over the ball, whether we're giving up 3rd downs. Our defense is what's going to anchor this for us. And if they're able to do a little extra, get turnovers, get us great field position, just put us in a great spot, one feeds the other. So this game comes down to what our defense is able to create. This is a PK game for me more so than it is anything else, because I think this should be a battle if both teams actually show up ready to play. I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring deal.
Hey, we need a quick history lesson here. Drew, did you play in the shoe against Ohio State? That should be a T in front of OSU, or that should be an F in front of OSU, not a T, my good man. Drew, did you play in the shoe against FOSU in 2005? Drew, do you have any memories from that game?
Yeah, I think that was my 2nd game starting at linebacker. Yep, sure did.
Did you and Brian Robeson team up for a game clinching play at all?
Yeah. Forced fumble. I tend to drop picks too. I dropped a pick in the end zone.
We'll make mistakes. It's cool.
But no. Yeah. Made a great play at the end of the game. That game was, man, playing Ohio State at night wasn't as big of a deal for me going into it. I think everything that happened after we won there, it's like, oh, damn. This was.
I think that was like the heyday of my fandom, and that was the least I could concentrate on anything other than football for an entire week. That was back when people still listened to the radio at work, and all I did was listen to sports talk radio all week long. I could not get enough information. I had trouble sleeping. It was all I could think about all week, and then it was even more crazy that week than it was going into the national championship game later that season. So I'm sure there's a lot of fans feeling the same way right now.
That game was distinctive. If you go back and watch it, the defense kind of bailed the offense out. Like everybody remembers maybe a couple highlight runs by Vince and then the Limas Sweet in the corner, but the offense nearly gave that game away early, and the defense had like a million sudden change stops.
Well, who had the hardest hit in that game?
Well, Jamal Charles.
Jamal Charles, yeah. Jamal
Charles.
On an interception return.
Yeah, Jamal Charles on AJ Hawk. That's why AJ Hawk wears sunglasses all the time on TV, man. His eyes are still blackened from that.
That game was crazy, man. But that's much how I see this game going. Two talented teams. It should be a battle. I really think if our defense does what I expect them to do, that's where I think this game's going to be won. Is can we create opportunities? Because we don't know. I mean, we need to know our offense is going to need as many possessions, as many opportunities as possible. And our defense is all we got, really.
Want to hear from our final sponsor tonight, and that's our friend Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512, or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
Guys, let's do some coaching here. Jacob is asking, guys, if Texas wins the coin toss, should they take the ball first or take it in the second half? We'll start with you, Eric.
Yeah, there's this thing called survivor bias, I think, from World War II, and they're studying planes that came back that were shot up, and they were all shot up in these certain spots, and they noticed that, and they said, that's where we need to shore these planes up because that's where they're getting shot up. But what they learned was that the planes were actually being shot down that weren't coming back, were shot in the other areas, so that's where they really needed to shore it up. So here, it's counterintuitive. You think you want to kick the ball and receive it in the second half, but they don't do anything with the ball in the second half. So they're actually just costing themselves a possession in the first half when they actually do score the ball. So I'm going with take the ball, try to put up some points, get them on their heels, hope the defense comes up, try to build a lead, and force their hand a little bit.
That's a really good answer. I don't think you're going to beat that, Ian. Can you beat that answer?
Was going to say that. My only potential disagreement is
there it is. Okay, great.
If you let them go first and you stuff their initial drive, then your field position on your first drive when you open the script is better. But usually other teams' opening script against Texas is one of their best drives. So it doesn't really seem to play out that way very often. And then the reverse has been true. Like they came out against Arizona State and they got the ball first, right? And then they take 2 sacks. And then the exact same principle was they work against them. So I think Eric's right.
Yeah, let's get Quinn cooking. Let's get the offense cooking. I don't want to put pressure on our offense. Let's
That's Ohio State's job, yeah.
Yeah, let's get them started. Let's see what they can do, moving the ball, scoring touchdowns to open the game, and I trust our defense to follow up after that. But I definitely don't want to go down 7-0.
What was
If we
What was
can
the
avoid
number
it.
I came up with the other day? Was that 9? Well, it's the number Texas came up with. I think they've scored 9 points in the third quarter since the Vanderbilt game, discounting Florida because that game was entirely over in the first half, and still they scored a touchdown there. So they scored more points in 2 overtimes versus Arizona State, albeit starting on the 25. And they scored 9, I think, in whatever it is, 6-7 games since Vanderbilt in the third quarter. So saving that possession for the third quarter is a bold move, fellas.
This is the question I'll throw at you, Ian. I mean, and I don't remember this totally well, but how did Penn State and Nebraska keep it so close? I mean, we've talked about Michigan, obviously, but what were Penn State and Nebraska doing? It's my understanding from reading your articles at InsideTexas.com. Please join us for $1 for 7 days. That you could, they basically tried to model the Michigan defense. Is that accurate?
Put the ball in Will Howard's hand.
I think they might have. I didn't watch the Nebraska game, to be honest, but that would have been Nebraska's play. That's kind of how Matt Rule tends to do things out there. Would be just like playing too high. And then I know Penn State definitely did that some. And if I'm remembering the game right, they baited Howard into a pick 6 on a 2-read coverage. Did y'all have that back in the day, Drew? Did y'all play 2-read?
Yep.
Yeah. They baited him into that. They shouted the pass a lot, shaded to the pass a lot. They had Abdul Carter, I think, gave Ohio State a lot of problems.
Nebraska got absolutely bombed the week before. Bombed. I'm talking about TCU versus Texas in, what was it, 2015?
Right. No, I remember
that week before Texas came back and beat OU, and everybody had left Texas for dead, justifiably so, because they got obliterated the week before. Nebraska got their bell rung. They lost by like 40-something points to, I forget who it was, but not a great team. And I think that, that's just an attention getter, and it probably hurt some of Ohio State's preparation as well.
Yeah, I don't think Ohio State was up for that game at all.
Well, they came off a bye week. They just lost to Oregon, then came back to play Nebraska at home, and that's how they showed up.
Oh, you're right.
Who did Nebraska play? It was, I don't know. Was it Rutgers? I mean, it wasn't Illinois, because Illinois is pretty decent.
I can't remember, but yeah,
I gotta look it up. That's going to bother me. I'm not going to be able to sleep and dream about Jared Gibson. Indiana. It was Indiana. Okay, so Indiana's pretty good.
So Drew,
still terrible.
Is it possible at this late in the season? What Boo Kerrigan here is asking is there any way we solve the third quarter issue, or is that it is just what it is? I mean, you've been on teams, obviously. Unfortunately, these things happen. They become habits, or maybe even just mental things. What is it going to be solved? Can it be solved at this point, or is just what it is?
Can we run the ball? Can we stop pre-snap penalties? That changes everything. So can it be solved? I don't know if it can be solved. Can we do what we've been preparing to do? Like not jump off the ball, actually move some people off the line of scrimmage a bit, find other ways to run the ball outside of outside zone. I can't. I guess I'm not. While we've had consistent third quarter challenges, I just don't go into any week anticipating we're going to have third quarter challenges.
Of course,
Smart doesn't go into any week anticipating we're going to have third quarter challenges. So the real question is, can we find offense? Can we actually move the ball? Can we find something that gives us some confidence? Because when we come out the third quarter and we have nothing new to do, and they've already figured out what we've been trying to do in the first half, then we're just reaching, we're just grabbing. So, can it be solved? Sure. They've been prepping to play a clean and perfect game for the longest. Why not? Why can't this one be the one? But it's a trend. Most of the issues that they happen all throughout the game. It's just, third quarter is where it's just hurt the most. So
sports are weird. It just takes one breakout, one throw over the top. It could change everything. Sports are weird. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason, but I wouldn't go into this game expecting them to put 2 touchdowns on the board in the third quarter.
We're going to answer this question, Jacob, but Braxton Moore is asking a question that really I enjoy. Do we use the third quarter just to, like see what the adjustments are, and then we do our finish in the fourth? Is it like a sneaky move that we're doing? Like we kind of like lying in wait, like maybe a panther behind the shrubbery, and then we come out in fourth quarter? Is that what happens, Ian?
I mean, I think something maybe not quite that conniving is going on. Like, was it the Arkansas game where Sark in the fourth quarter was like, fine, we're just going to run the ball. And then they ran the ball like 30 straight times or something to close out the game or something wild. I think sometimes Sark does try to throw things at the wall in the third quarter, and then it's usually dialed in by the fourth, or they just worn the other team out finally. So I think there's like maybe a little bit of that. It's mostly, not something laudable though, or explained away as being secret strength.
Secret strength. All right, let's go to Jacob's question, because we answered this a little bit earlier. We heard Eric and Ian's take, which we'll hear again, but I'm just curious what your thoughts are on this, Drew. I mean, do you believe the winner of this game, the Cotton Bowl, will go on to win the national championship?
No, I don't think it's guaranteed. I mean, I think Ohio State's talented, but I've seen how Ohio State play every game this season prior to these last two. And these last two, I just saw a lot of freebies. So it's just hard for me to think with the defenses that Penn State and Notre Dame have that it'll just be a guarantee. I'm not sure which one of those teams I trust more, but I don't think anything's a guarantee at this point.
Don't sleep on Notre Dame.
Well, you had Notre Dame. You have Notre Dame at America's War Room, don't you?
No, I had them losing to Oregon in the final and when the playoffs begin.
What, you changed your pick? You can't start bragging about having Ohio State at the beginning of the season if you changed your pick.
Well, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that they're obviously a talented team.
He's got two different personalities.
Yeah, I see that.
He's got inside Texas, and then he's got his
American War, his secret strength over there.
Yeah. This is something that I want to talk about, because I think we don't want to get too much into the politics of the SEC and trying to move games and what Sankey is involved in. But to me, this is the thing that makes the most sense. Are we trying to boost TV ratings by making the games more suspenseful? Because we could just come out and obviously blow everybody out. But I have to think that, they're going to want people to watch all four quarters. Where do you land on this, Drew?
There's nothing Sark wants now more than ever to just blow a team out. He has no interest in keeping this interesting. He wants to come out in the third quarter, score 21, run the ball down your throat.
How did Sark define a blowout? 31-10?
Yeah.
What was the score of the Michigan game?
Then that game was probably 17-10 in the fourth quarter, at the beginning of the fourth quarter. I mean, the A&M game was a blowout to Sark. They won 17-7 very convincingly.
The thing about blowouts happen too when, your defense has to be clicking on all cylinders. You got to be getting short fields. You got to be getting turnovers. At the end of the day, unless you're playing against a team that's just inferior, you're not just bombing 4 quarters against Ohio State. And Ohio State isn't doing that against Texas. Like, it didn't work out that way. They got moving quick on Oregon. Oregon looked lost. It's like everything Oregon did to stay in the game when they played at home, they couldn't find it in this game. So, yeah, that's how blowouts happen, when a team is ill-prepared, a team is overmatched. But Ohio State obviously had a lot of confidence and leverage in this game plan. So, I don't know. We don't want to make it interesting. We want to blow people out and go on to win the Natty.
Ian, you've talked about this a little bit, but how much relevance does the game have for this game? It's just a mini stroke, guys. I'm fine.
I think you have to look at what Michigan's been doing for 4 years in a row to beat this team. If you don't, I think a lot of people are assuming that Ohio State fixed everything after the Michigan game, and that's why they're blowing everybody out. I don't think that's true. I'm not seeing teams come anywhere close to employing the strategies the Michigan has employed. And if they were so easy to fix, then why has Michigan beat them 4 times in a row with the same game plan?
Yeah, there's a psychological component in that game.
There is, but there's also we're going to play too high and make you run the ball, and we have enormous defensive tackles that you can't block. That's the heart of why Michigan keeps beating them. And can Texas mimic that with Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins? I don't know, but maybe it's worth a shot.
I think they can. I mean, if they want to, I do think they can. Vernon and Alfred are about to have great games. Full confidence in them.
They should do that then. They should 100% do that. And I really doubt that Ohio State's going to still drop 40. No. The answer to this is no.
For those of you listening in your car ride to school, the question is, Ian, are Ohio State linebackers as good as Georgia? And that was a definitive no. Well, I mean, is that because that the Michigan linebacker is a former safety who's moved down? And that doesn't work really well, does it, Drew?
Yeah, it's nothing to do with that. Georgia's linebacker is just amazing.
Drew ain't catching any of these jokes, man. Drew is Drew's got his game face.
Drew is locked in. I love it.
You know what's funny on weeks like this? You know what's hard for me to do? It's hard for me to talk.
Wow.
Like,
Enjoy yourself.
well, it's like I got to keep myself busy because I can't play.
Oh, I get it.
Like we like it's just I miss things because I'm like, dude, these types of weeks I'm just ready to get to Friday. It's just I'm tired of talk. I can't do anything else. So yeah, we get to talk about it, but certain questions and certain things I'm just like, can we just play the game already? Like, I'm just ready to play.
Who do you guys think is going to win the other semifinal? Who do you guys have? That game's still Thursday, right?
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, the reason I say that is because Notre Dame already got shorted a day due to the Sugar Bowl having to be moved today. So, who do you guys have in that one?
I'm betting against James Franklin until I'm rewarded.
Yeah, I think that's the play there.
Me too. All right, cool. Is it unanimous?
Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame's going to play a clean enough game and get it done.
I think Notre Dame has got a good thing going right now.
I do too.
They have so many. They looked like they kind of out Georgia.
Yeah,
Like,
we thought it was going to be the other way around going in, that Georgia would just be a superior version of Notre Dame. And that's why if Texas beats Ohio State, I'm going to have the same exact concerns about playing clean, penalties, focus, maybe not focus for that game, but penalties and turnovers and special teams and doing all these little things and execution. I'll have the same exact concerns going into the next game, no matter who wins.
Well, this is the thing we've talked about a lot during this season, right? It's like they will come out and execute something that they hadn't done all year really, really well, but then they'll develop a new little wrinkle there that seems to be a struggle. And then we just haven't quite got to that ceiling yet. And I think that's the frustrating bit. All right, guys, I want to thank everybody for being here. We do have a special going on, and I want to tell everybody about it. We have right now, if you join us over at InsideTexas.com, that's where everybody is doing their writing, and all these articles that we keep talking about are there. You can join us there for $1. You guys can join us for $1. That's for 7 days. That's going to have all of the pregame stuff. That'll have all of the analysis. That'll have all the deep dives, everything that we talked about of Ian breaking down the Michigan defense and how it can be applicable in this game is there. It's also a great community, and we would really love it if you could join us there. So please do. We do have a pregame. All of that information is going to be at InsideTexas.com as well. Oh yeah, it was Clam Chatter and Ian's Tumblr. Okay, well that's good information. Did anybody else guess Ian Clam Chatter?
No, I was going to give a pair of free tickets to the Cotton Bowl, but nobody guessed it.
Nobody guessed it. Is that a New England, Ian?
Do you put the oyster crackers in there?
What do you put in there?
Yeah, San Francisco style.
Great.